Hi, I'm Jerry Stone and I run Spaceflight UK. I'm a freelance space presenter, broadcaster and author. I'm often interviewed on radio and TV, and I've covered such events as the passing of Neil Armstrong and Tim Peake's mission to the International Space Station. I present space workshops in schools across the UK. I'm an acknowledged expert on the Apollo program and wrote a book commemorating the first moon landing. My latest book covers a range of aspects of space exploration. If you'd like to order a signed copy, drop me a line at jerry.stone2001@gmail.com. I'm giving a series of presentations covering every Apollo 50th anniversary. I began in October 2018 and I'll be continuing through to the 50th anniversary of Apollo 17 in December 2022. Since the moon landings, America has launched a space station, conducted a joint flight with a Russian crew, flown 5 space shuttles, and has helped build and operate the International Space Station. However, the space shuttle was retired in July 2011, and so for the last 9 years, the USA has paid for their astronauts to be taken to and from the ISS in Russia's Soyuz spacecraft. But now we've seen the beginning of America's return to space. The main project that NASA's been working on is the Space Launch System. Developed from the Space Shuttle, but without the orbiter, the Space Launch System has a central core, at the base of which are 4 RS-25 engines of the type used on the Space Shuttle. Here you can see one of them undergoing a test firing. And like the shuttle, to provide the additional thrust that's needed at launch, it has 2 solid rocket boosters. Altogether, they will provide £8.5 million of thrust, greater than that of the Saturn V. On top of the SLS will be Orion, specifically the Orion Multi-Purpose Crew Vehicle, a conical spacecraft that is designed to be reused. Behind it is a service module provided by the European Space Agency. The spacecraft will have 50% more volume than the Apollo and will carry 4 to 6 astronauts. It will have a coating of heat-resistant tiles similar to those on the Space Shuttle. Like Apollo, it's designed to splash down in the ocean, as shown in these tests. And also, like Apollo, it'll have an escape system, referred to as the Launch Abort system, seen here undergoing a ground-based test. This will pull the spacecraft clear of the booster prior to launch and in the first couple of minutes of flight. It also went through a high altitude launch abort test, where the spacecraft was boosted to more than Mach 1. Preparations are being made at the Kennedy Space Center for the SLS. Here you can see the vehicle assembly building, and off in the distance, more than 3.5 miles away, launch pads 39A and 39B. Here's an artist's impression of the SLS out at the launch pad. It's assembled inside the VAB, as was the Saturn V, and you can see the yellow edged access platforms here, which have been now replaced by a new set that will fit around the SLS. The rocket will be put together on a mobile launch platform which has a mobile launch tower attached to it. And the entire structure with the rocket will then be carried out to the launch pad and positioned over the flame trench. I've actually stood there. This is all done using the crawler transporter, this huge vehicle. And every link in the Caterpillar tracks that you can see there weighs 1 ton each. They've also designed new spacesuits. The crew survival system suit, the orange one shown on the right, and Christine Davis, spacesuit designer at NASA, is modelling the new Exploration Extravehicular Mobility Unit, which will be worn on the Moon. Major goal for all this is a project called Artemis, named for the twin sister of Apollo. The first Artemis flight is due in November 2021 and will last for 26 days. It's an unmanned flight that will go into orbit around the Moon before returning to Earth. But NASA is not developing a lunar lander. This will come from private industry, and contracts were issued by NASA on the 30th of April this year for studies for a human landing system. One of these contracts went to SpaceX, another to Dynetics, and the third to a consortium known as the National Team. If all goes according to plan, one of these craft will place the next man and the first woman on the Moon, maybe by 2024. Meanwhile, other spacecraft are being developed that NASA will lease for other missions, in particular to send crews to and from the International Space Station. One of these is the CST-100 Starliner from Boeing. Slightly smaller than Orion, Starliner is designed to carry up to 7 people. It made an unmanned test flight on the 21st of December 2019. It didn't quite make it to the space station due to a fault, but it carried out the rest of its test program. Another unmanned test flight is planned for November 2020, before the first crew flies next April. Another craft has now flown its first crew, the crew version of the SpaceX Dragon. Designed to carry up to 7 people, NASA missions will fly a maximum of 4. Before flying with a crew, it underwent a pad abort test. And on January 19th, an in-flight abort test. And after an uncrewed demonstration flight to the ISS, the first manned flight was launched on May the 30th, crewed by Doug Hurley and Bob Behnken. This was the first launch of American astronauts on an American rocket from American soil since July 2011, and the first US spaceflight to deliver a crew to the ISS since 2009. Two days after launch, the spacecraft approached the space station and docked, where they joined the crew of Expedition 63 to stay probably until the end of August, when the first operational flight will be launched with a crew of 4. However, this was not the first time a new American spacecraft had launched a crew since the space shuttle. This is Virgin Galactic's Spaceship Two, underneath its carrier aircraft White Knight 2. The White Knight carries the spacecraft to an altitude of 15 kilometers, 50,000 feet, where it is released and fires its solid fuel engine. After reaching space, it will then glide down to a runway landing to be reused. Now, although it has flown above 50 miles, that's the US definition of space, it has not yet reached the international definition, which is 62 miles, 100 kilometers. But it will. And after that, it'll start carrying passengers. For just $250,000, you could be one of them. If you'd like a presentation on some aspect of space exploration or astronomy, or if you'd like to order one of my books, contact me.